Hi, I'm Matthew Lapp, host of Matthew Lapp Train Guy Segment Show. Also today in this segment, I'm at the Lake County Historical Society in Two Harbors, Minnesota. The Lake County Historical Society Depot Museum is located on 520 South Avenue in Two Harbors, Minnesota, and is open 10 to 4 Mondays through Saturdays, 9 to 5 from May to October, and November to May, Mondays through Saturdays 11 to 4. The train depot was built in 1907 and is a two-story brick depot, and the depot was also the headquarters and corporate offices for the Duluth and Iron Range Railroad. Also, it even served passenger service on the Duluth and Iron Range Railroad many years ago. It served passenger and freight trains until 1961, when it was soon retired and soon became a museum later on. And it houses the Lake County Historical Society Depot Museum, and it features exhibits that reflect the development of Lake County, with special emphasis placed on the big three industries: iron mining and the railroad, timber, and commercial fishing. Freight service also ceased on the line, which was acquired in 1989 by the St. Louis and Lake Counties Regional Railroad Authority. It now serves excursions operated by the North Shore Scenic Railroad out of Duluth, Minnesota. The depot was shown in the 1994 Disney movie Iron Will, and at the end of the movie, before the credits, and on the other side of the tracks is where Will Stoneman, played by Mackenzie Astin, was winning the dog sled race. Also, trains stop here from the Lake Superior Railroad Museum in Duluth, Minnesota, which is just south of Two Harbors, where people can likely come by train and even by car as well. Okay, I'm going to show you all the exhibits inside the building, but to see them, admission's required, just so you know. But if you're watching this virtually, I'm glad I'm showing you them, so here we go. Okay, so here are the train stuff back here, and here's some locomotive wheels, and here is some people. Let's see what this says. Employees of the mechanical department of the DNIRR, Duluth and Iron Range Railroad, Two Harbors, Minnesota, back in 1925. Here's a steam engine passing Lake Superior, it looks like. There's a ticket window. This is the old ticket window here. And look at these oil lanterns. There's a diesel engine's bell, some HO trains. And look at those pictures. And here's some lanterns right here. Wow, pretty cool. Look at that right there. Here's some track pieces as well. Here's some more back here, some HO dioramas. Looks like, oh, Knife River. Look at that. Looks almost realistic, doesn't it? And these are some Duluth, Misabi, and Iron Range engines. Hope you can hear me. And here's a parlor car model. That's the 229, which is outside. And here's another diorama right here. Pretty cool how they put this together. Yeah. Okay, you could see right here, here's a handcar that was once used by the Duluth and Iron Range Railroad. But yeah, it's retired, and it may have been used in this area a long time ago. Back then you had to pump it, which would give you good exercise back in the day when you worked for the railroad. But nowadays there's modern equipment, more modern than this handcar, like speeders, and speeders then were replaced by something else on the railroad, which would be high railers. Okay, you could see right here behind the handcar, this is a velocipede. This one may have been probably used by the Duluth and Iron Range Railroad, but now here it is today, displayed behind the handcar, and parallel and standing sideways in front of the bobber caboose. What you see right behind me is Duluth and Iron Range 22. Duluth and Iron Range 22 was built by Duluth Manufacturing Company in Duluth, Minnesota in 1893 and is a bobber caboose. Originally, this caboose was numbered as Duluth and Iron Range 52 and originally built as a four-wheel caboose, and for many years this caboose was used on the Duluth and Iron Range Railroad as the train crew's office, being used behind freight trains. In 1909, it was rebuilt as an eight-wheel caboose and renumbered as Duluth and Iron Range 22. Then in 1932 the caboose was retired, and in 1934 it was converted back to being a four-wheel caboose for display at the Lake County Historical Society Depot Museum in Two Harbors, Minnesota, where it can be seen on display today. What you see right behind me is Duluth and Iron Range 251. Duluth and Iron Range 251 was built by the Northwest Manufacturing Company in Stillwater, Minnesota in 1884 and is an ore car. This car was delivered by barge when it came out of the factory, and it is Duluth and Iron Range's very first ore car, and this car had been used on freight trains with many ore cars when being used on the Duluth and Iron Range Railroad and hauled ore as well. Then later it was retired and then came to be on display at the Lake County Historical Society Depot Museum in Two Harbors, Minnesota, where it can be seen today. What you see right behind me is Duluth and Iron Range 3. Duluth and Iron Range 3 was built by Baldwin in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1883 and is the 6649th steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 260 Mogul type steam locomotive. Originally, this locomotive was built for the Tehuantepec and Interoceanic Railroad. The locomotive was resold to the Duluth and Iron Range Railroad as Duluth and Iron Range 3, and it was intended for a railroad in Brazil but was refused on technical grounds, and needing a locomotive to help lay rails from Two Harbors, Minnesota, and it was shipped to Two Harbors by barge and was the only wood-burning locomotive ever operated on the railroad, and was assigned to the Minnesota Iron Company in 1874, where it hauled iron ore from its Sodan mine to Two Harbors, and then as heavier locomotives joined the Duluth and Iron Range, and this locomotive became less and less useful. It was bought by the Illinois Steel in 1887, which in 1901 became part of the United States Steel Corporation. Then in 1888 it was sold to the Duluth and Northern Minnesota and was renumbered as Duluth and Northern Minnesota 2 and would be used in hauling logs as a task. The locomotive was suited perfectly for being light enough to negotiate the often lightly built track beds of the logging railroad. In 1923, the locomotive was sold to the Duluth and Iron Range Veterans Association, and the three-spot was purchased by the 30 Years Veterans Association of the Duluth and Iron Range Railroad Company, restored to its original appearance and placed on display at the depot as part of Duluth and Iron Range's 40th anniversary celebrations. Also today, the locomotive is on display at the Lake County Historical Society Depot Museum in Two Harbors, Minnesota, where it is on display today. Also, Duluth and Iron Range 3 is the only surviving 260 from the Duluth and Northern Minnesota Railroad and the Duluth and Iron Range Railroad, and can be found here on display at the Lake County Historical Society Depot Museum in Two Harbors, Minnesota, where it can be seen today. What you see right behind me is Duluth, Mesabi and Iron Range 229. Duluth, Mesabi and Iron Range 229 was built by Baldwin in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1943 and is the 64708th steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 2884 Yellowstone type steam locomotive and is an M4 class steam locomotive. Duluth, Mesabi and Iron Range 229 was one of 18 Yellowstone type locomotives built by Baldwin for the Duluth, Mesabi and Iron Range during World War years 1941 and 1943. This locomotive hauled 40 million long tons of iron ore from the mine of the Mesabi and Vermilion Ranges to docks in Duluth or Two Harbors, Minnesota. Also, iron ore is a heavy and combined with the railroad steep grades made transporting the material from the iron mines to the Great Lakes a tricky task and required great amounts of power. It performed so well that several were loaned out to the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad for use on their Tennessee Pass route. Then later on, Duluth, Mesabi and Iron Range 229 was retired, and also its sister locomotive that used to be here was Duluth, Mesabi and Iron Range 221, which is an M3 class steam locomotive built by Baldwin in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1941 and was scrapped in 1967, and 229 got put right here on display here at the Lake County Historical Museum here in Two Harbors, Minnesota. Also, Duluth, Mesabi and Iron Range 229 is one of 3 surviving 2884 Yellowstones left in the world today, and all 3 of them are Duluth, Mesabi and Iron Range locomotives, and 229 can be found here at the Lake County Historical Museum in Two Harbors, Minnesota by the Duluth and Iron Range Depot, where it is today. Well, I hope you all enjoyed learning about trains with me today in Matthew Lapp Train Guy segment show. Also, I hope to see you all again in the next segment, and if you did not subscribe to my channel yet, please consider doing so, because I'll sure appreciate it if you hit that button, which will be underneath the video screen. And if you did not give my Facebook page a like yet, here it is as it pops up right beside me or above my head. And if you didn't follow it on Instagram yet, please do so. I'll sure appreciate it if you didn't do yet. So be sure to do both of those. So this is Matthew Lapp, host of Matthew Lapp Train Guy segment show, signing now. Until next time, all aboard!